Good morning, everyone. And today we are conducting the 21st session of our Sunday webinar series. And I remember Murugaraj mentioning that for any new habit to become regular, we should do it for 21 days regularly. But
Okay.
because ours was a weekly thing, so we now that we are on the 21st session, we can maybe consider ourselves successful. It 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 has been started as a 40 session series, but we might go over that. And in addition, there is the interview series also, for which we have had 2 sessions. And next Saturday we are starting a travel series to give you all a break from the editing business,
Okay.
and it will also help us get to know the other aspects of our participants, like what all they do and what all their passions are. So today's session is on style guides and style manuals, and our speaker for today is Yatindra Joshi, who has 30 plus years of experience as an editor and 15 plus as a trainer. And he is actually the only Indian who has been granted the diplomat status by the Board of Editors in Life Sciences. And there are only 38 such editors all over the world. So over to you, Yatindra.
Right. Good morning. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining. So, what I plan to do in this is for those of you who have not used style guides or who even don't know what style guides are, well, I will sensitize you to how good a tool it is for editors. Those of you who are familiar with style guides, maybe you use Chicago by default, use APA by default. I would also share with you other options. Maybe some are more appropriate for one job than the other, and so on. And as some of you had asked, I will also take a look at how style guides evolve, a little bit of their history, and so on. And what I'm not going to do, so don't be, let me put your mind to rest. I'm not going to work you through any one particular style guide point by point, and that is simply an undertaking that will be doomed for failure. So let's start with this. What are we really talking about when we say style? This I find a particularly good reference, although it's quite dated. So Cochrane's talks about 4 kinds of style. So what do we really mean by style? So as he says, it has four kinds of styles that we are talking about. And obviously, what we are going to be talking about in this session is the first one, that is editorial or style book style. But that's not the only style. There's typographic style, there's literary style, usage style, and so on. So what style guides don't talk about, at least some don't talk about, is usage. So we are not talking about usage. We are only talking about points of detail. Now, this is important because style guides are of no help when it comes to substantive editing, or if you are using, you are improving the author's expression. No, that's, so this is something I will keep coming back to again and again, that style guides are finishing tools. So when I was working in Terry, I used to think that our publications unit was a cobbler's shop. So we would fix everything. Somebody would just drop in and say, okay, this nail is coming up, just hammer it a bit. Okay, we'll do that. All the way from that to somebody says, okay, I'm going to be starting a new publication and let us work on it from scratch. It's like you approach a mochi and said, you design a shoe for me. So all the way right from hammering a nail to designing a shoe, we used to do that. So where do style guides come in? Style guides come in when your job is nearly done. Let's say you are making a piece of furniture. Let's say you're making a chair. So you have actually built the chair, but it's the putting the final polish, final sandpapering. That is where style guides come into their forte. And they are necessarily restrictive. So the point is, there could be, I'm sure there are many amongst you who will balk at the this rigid tone that style guides have. So if you are more comfortable with substantive editing, if you are more comfortable talking, retaining the author's voice and so on, then again, I would say style guides are not really meant for that. That's not their job at all. By their very nature, they are restrictive. So there's no point in rebelling against them because that's not their job. So let's also differentiate, because Murugaraj talked about style sheets and he also mentioned style. So let's get our concepts clear. So a style, especially for those of you who use Word, it's a collection of specifications. So we say style for heading A. So we define what should be the typeface, what should be the font, whether it's right aligned, left aligned, centered, whether it's by posture, I mean, whether it's normal or italics, by weight, I mean, whether it's normal or bold, and so on. So that's an example of a style. So TNR, that is Times New Roman, 12/15. So 12 points, the font size, 15 is the line spacing, 24 picas is the old measure. So that is the line length. 6 picas make an inch. RR, that is ragged right. So it's only left aligned. Or there's another example, 32 point Sitka, bold, centered, 20 point space above. So these are all examples of style. A style sheet, as Murugaraj spoke to you the last time, it's a compilation of the decisions that you will make for a particular job. So the idea is that you will have a default dictionary, a default style guide. So when in doubt, you will refer to one of these. But if the point is not covered, or if its point is unique to your particular job, then you will note that in a style sheet. So you'll refer to as, names of spelling of proper nouns and so on. So and eventually style sheets go on to make a style guide. So style guide is a pretty large compilation. I know, Chicago, how fat it is. And they evolve over time. So essentially style guides, when they started life, they were for a particular publishing house, like Chicago evolved as this publishing guide for the University of Chicago Press. But then there was demand and they published it. So that's the difference. We are talking about style guides. There's a small difference between style guides and style manuals. One is more of a UK, USA thing. That style guide is the term more common in Britain. A style manual is more common in the US, as you would say APA manual or AMA manual. I also noticed at some point, Maeve O'Connor, who was at one time president of EASE, the European Association of Science Editors. So she made another distinction. She said that style manuals to her are more prescriptive, do this, don't do that. Whereas style guides are more descriptive. So this is what is done in this press, this is what's done in another press, and so on. But anyway, let's not split here. So let's go on to what style guides are not. So it's not a misnomer. So style guides are not about this kind of style. That is what you call typically an author's voice. Hemingway wrote in a particular style. Somerset Maugham has his distinctive style, and so on. So style guides are about not that kind of style. They govern the appearance of text on paper, on screen. So not so much choice of words or syntax and so on, but how the words are going to look. So these are, in fact, the kind of publications that are not really style guide. These are about writing style. So how authors, how they learn to write well, what works for readers, and so on. So these are not, this covers, these style guides, these books cover what I call the author's style. So of course they are useful, but they are not style guides for the topic of today's presentation. So style guides are for copy editing. So that's what I meant. The style guides are for final polish. So style guides ignore What do they ignore? In most cases, they ignore usage, idioms, common errors, spelling, grammar. No, it is for putting final touches. So style guides won't touch upon the overall flow or whether the text is readable and so on, quality of writing. No, that's not what style guides are about. Or the overall organization. So all aspects, these are typically aspects of more substantive editing, and style guides are not for that. It's once you have your editing job in near final shape, that is where style guides come in. So they are by nature detail oriented. So I want to illustrate what they mean by detail oriented. So for instance, what would you say? Would you say websites 2 words or 1 word? Anyone? Okay, think about it. How will you hyphenate it? Would you say Northwest solid or Northwest hyphenated? Would you say World War II or would you say Second World War? Would you make the ordinal prefix superscript? Would you put a dot after a numbered list? So you see, these are totally trivial things, but this is the kind of level, this is the level of detail at which style guides are useful. And in most of these cases, there is no right or wrong. It's just a matter of style. And in many cases, style preferences are arbitrary. Now, I'll give you an example. For instance, if you want to refer to a figure in an article or in a book, figure 1. So would you make that figure with cap F or would you make it lowercase? Most publishers would make it cap, but Chicago will make it lowercase. Or you are writing about somebody, let's say this happened somewhere in mid 1980s, okay? Mid 1980s. So what would you do with mid? Would you follow it with a hyphen or would you follow it just with space? Again, there's nothing right or wrong about this. If you opt for the first option of hyphenating, you are Chicago. If you leave it open, you are Oxford Dictionary for writers and editors. It's a matter of choice. To give you an example once again of this now Northwest. So Merriam-Webster puts it solid. No hyphen, no space, just Northwest. Collins and Oxford Dictionary for writers and editors would hyphenate it. As you could see, Northwest, Northwestern, hyphen. So that's what style guides are like. They tell you, okay, do this, don't do that. So GPO, that's Government Printing Office, that's US government department. So again, I'm reproducing some parts of its content simply to make this point that these are kind of things that you need to consult style guides about. So how do you hyphenate? How do you punctuate? In tricky matters only, not plain simple punctuation, no. Tabular work, how do you set out tables? Table 1, would you put a dot after 1? Would you put space? Would you put a colon? These are kind of things, the style guides. So they are totally detail oriented. Now Hart's Rules is the probably the oldest style guide. I think it beat Chicago by 1 year. That was, the full title is Hart's Rules for the Compositors and Readers at the University Press, Oxford. So that's Hart's Rules. In the present incarnation, you see, these are again the kind of things that style guides deal with. Capitalization, names, language, numbers, references, and so on. Microsoft Style Guide. So obviously they are domain specific, and I'll show you some examples of these. But just to make the point that they are totally detail oriented. And how trivial this could be. Now Associated Press, when it switched to using percentage symbol, rather than spelling it out percent as one word, it became news. Now the reason for this was actually simple, that earlier when the telex machines were used, there was simply no way that a percent symbol could be transmitted. So AP for many years retained the word percent. But now the technology has changed, it's all digital. So they decide, okay, time to switch to percentage symbol. So again, take your choice. What is appears in blue is the choice of Oxford Dictionary for writers and editors. Your mileage might vary, but that's how it is. So these are the kind of details that style guide cover, and unless you are sensitive to these details, style guides will be of little use to you. So actually the key skill in using a style guide is to know when to look it up. And that is something you get only by experience. So again, this is the excerpt from Oxford Dictionary for Writers and Editors. And as it says, health care, 2 words. Website, 1 word. And so on. Now let me ask you to focus a bit. Now here is a part of the instructions given by the publisher about how to deal with figure captions. So please examine this. So the publisher is very clear that this is how figure captions are to be dealt with. All right. Now what I would like you to do is to tell me whether this is consistent with the publisher's instructions or not.
It's got punctuation.
Right? How about that? Does it follow the style? Anyone?
Something became
It
bold.
still has a period at the end.
It's a period.
Yes.
Figure. Yes.
Right, there you go. So this is what they mean.
Yeah, this is right.
Yeah. But that again, I'm simply illustrating that this is the level of detail that style guides go. And if you want to put the final polish to your job, that is the level of detail you should be prepared to go into. Because I've seen people, so getting so exasperated, like they feel like, oh, I feel like tearing my hair. But that is the level of detail that style guides are for. Numbered headings. Again, some journals use numbered headings, and in this case, they are putting a dot after the number. Some journals do that, some publishers do that, some publishers don't put that dot, as you could see. So there's no right or wrong about this. It is simply a matter of style. So take, for instance, because style guides evolve.
A matter of style which has to be consistent.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So it's not so much a matter of right or wrong, but it's a matter of consistency.
True.
So for instance, now APA, the current edition is the 7th one. So what are the changes? These are again the kind of changes that, so APA 7 now endorses, instead of italics, they use double quotes. Or AMA for instance, finally, I think it was about time they did that, because everybody else did it the way they are switching it to now, that there has to be a space between the value and the symbol degrees Celsius. But only now, and I don't know when they will switch to putting the dot after AL in et al. Again, AMA must be about the only guide that says that we don't require that dot after L in et al. Maybe they will change. So why do you need a style guide? Now, these are situations where you don't need a style guide. For instance, if you are not really bothered about turning a first-class job, you don't bother about the style guide. After all, most of your readers will not bother. Or it's a small, quick job, just a notice has to go on some notice board, or it's a handbill, whatever. You may not require a style guide. It's like using a hammer to crack a nut. Or it's a one-off job. So although, of course, within a job, it should be consistent, but it's your choice. You might, or there's simply, no time, because it does take time. Because as I said, these are polishing touches. So it's your choice. You may use it, you may not use it. But why will you use it? Well, this is, of course, I'm sure that this is the most important reason for all of us, that yes, the customer wants it. We have been asked to follow Chicago or AMA or whatever. So you have no choice but to follow that. Most important, because your customers, by customers, I mean the final readers or the author, they are not really going to even notice many of the things that you do because you want to impose consistency. But other copy editors, they will notice. And especially those who are going to make hiring decisions. So maybe you should use a style guide if you want to impress fellow copy editors. They save time. Otherwise you will go on wrangling over this issue. That was, in fact, one of the main reasons why style guides evolved. So you simply look up, okay, I'll put a dot after FIG because that's what the style guide says. So for all these reasons, you should use style guides. Finishing touches. Now, how do you choose a style guide? It's a very wide choice. Again, if the customer has specified a style guide, your job is easy. You would simply say, okay, for this job, the customer wants Chicago. So Chicago is what the customer gets. That's the simplest situation. Or it could be in a domain. So for instance, in most social sciences, American Psychological Association manual is practically de facto standard. Medicine, I'm sure Vivek will second me here, it's American Medical Association. For humanities, MLA, Modern Language Association. So there could be domain-specific style guides. Or it could be vary with geography. So US follows certain style guides, Britain follows style guides, Australia, Canada. So that is another possibility. Or it is for the job. So let's say if a paper in mathematics that you are doing, so not all style guides will get into the level of detail that is required. So maybe you will use the style guide of American Mathematical Society or whatever. So these are some ways in which you decide which style guide to use. So when I said geography, this is what I meant, that Chicago is practically the most widely used style guide in the US. Butcher's copy editing is the Cambridge Handbook. It needs to be updated, but again, that's very common. Butchers and Harts are practically very common in UK styles. You will also notice in Butchers, as the cover itself is, that copy editing is hyphenated because that's again the UK style. US style is to copy edit is solid, one word. There's style manual from Australia, and I'll come back to it later. That's what I was illustrating, the geography. So there's Canadian style guide, whatever. So it could be a matter of geography. So let's get into a bit of history. So as I said, Hart's rules beat Chicago by 1 year, published 1905, Chicago in 1906, APA 52. Now, Scientific Style and Format, that's the current name, but it started as Style Manual for Biological Editors because, in fact, earlier it was published by Council of Biology Editors, but the council itself changed its name to Council of Science Editors. And so on. So you see, some are young, some are old, some are very old. And how they started. See, Hart's rules. For instance, this is even a pre-publication copy. And why did they then decide to issue it as a publication for the general public? Because earlier it was copies were only meant for the readers and compositors at the University Press, Oxford. But as Hart explains in the preface to this, Horace Hart was that time printer to the university. So you see, what was essentially meant for in-house use when copies were available on sale, then obviously the publishers thought, then why should we give it away free? Let's publish it as a book. So that's a bit of history. So essentially all style guides evolve like that. They begin as a compilation and the compilation keeps growing, then at some point it gets enough respect, it gets enough credibility, and it's published as a book. So that's the first edition of Chicago. It's in 1906. AMA, see, first was in-house document. That's happens with most style guides. And imagine in 1962, it was only 68 pages. And now if you see, I haven't seen the 11th edition. I've seen the digital one, but not the physical one. But 10th edition I have, and that's, you can use it as a dumbbell. So who makes these style guides? Who are these style czars? Well, publishers publish style guide. The examples that we have seen, whether it's Hart's for University Press, Oxford, whether it's University of Chicago Press, that Chicago Manual. So publishers issue their style guides. Newspapers, so you have Times Style Guide, you have New York Times Style Guide, The Economist. Professional associations, so again, AMA or APA is a good example of that. Government bodies, UN agencies, they have their style guides. Companies, Microsoft Style, Apple, IBM. Then Editors Association, so European Association of Style Science Editors publishes its handbook, and so on. Or there could be miscellaneous compilation. So let's see some examples of these. So Chicago, of course, by University of Chicago Press. Now, New Oxford Style Manual is actually 2 books. They're simply 2 books bound together. New Hart's Rules, that is a proper style guide, and New Oxford Dictionary for Writers and Editors. That is, it's an alphabetical list only of tricky words. So where to hyphenate, capitalization, and so on. There's Oxford Dictionary for Scientific Writers and Editors. And there's a spelling dictionary. So these are, publisher specific style guides. Newspapers and magazines, the Economist Style Guide is really good one. The Times, that is the London Times, has its style guide. Wall Street Journal, New York Times, Associated Press. So these are news oriented. Professional associations, well, I mentioned APA, that's Publication Manual of American Psychological Association. MHRA, that's Modern Humanities Research Association based in London. AMA, American Medical Association Style Guide. British Psychological Society. EASE, European Association of Science Editors. ACS, I mentioned ACS, American Chemical Society, because this is the 3rd edition. Now what they have done is they have done away with printed copies at all. Very recently, they have put it only on the web. I'll come back to that in a minute. And SSF, that is Scientific Style and Format. This is published by the Council of Science Editors. This is the present incarnation of what was earlier Council of Biology Style Manual. So professional associations. Yeah, I was talking about ACS, American Chemical Society. So now what ACS has done is only on the web, and unless your institution subscribes to it, you can't get access. In fact, I wanted to see how they have handled references, so I persisted. So then they said, fine, references, it's available. It's open access. You can look up our reference style in. But otherwise, as of now, it is only available on subscription and web-based. ACS, that's American Chemical Society. MLA, that's Modern Language Association. 9th edition is expected next year. So this is predominantly used in the humanities. So if that's your subject material, you might use MLA. UN bodies, so World Meteorological Organization has a style guide. This is GPO. I mentioned the table of contents early on. This Government Printing Office, the US. This is especially for units. This is a particularly good handbook published by Bureau of Weights and Measure. WHO has a style guide, Australian style guide, Australian government style guide, and so on. So again, Australian government style, and this is something I would really recommend. This is a very good style guide available for free as of now on a website. And the website is very well laid out. So if you really want to get to know a style guide or what kind of things style guides handle, I would really urge upon you to visit this website. You can also send your comments and so on. But to get used to what style guides cover, I would say this is a very good resource. So companies, organizations, so BBC has a style guide, OECD, Organization of Economic Cooperation and Development, has a style guide, World Bank has a style guide. In fact, CDC will be probably useful to us in the COVID times, Center for Disease Control. So, and companies, I said IBM, Microsoft, Yahoo, Apple, whatever. Then there are miscellaneous compilation. I would say this is a particularly good one, Amy Enson's Copy Editor's Handbook, because this draws on a number of style guides and also presents their varying decisions, and it's a good guide to style books as a whole. Some of you referred to Greg's, that's more of US business style, William Sabins. June Cascarande, this is only about punctuation. And what she has done is she gives detailed tables that matters of punctuation, what Chicago says, what APA says, what this style guide says. So it's a compilation where you can see how style guides differ in matters of punctuation. Columbia style guide, again, it's a miscellaneous thing. Dreyer's, some of you would have seen it. This is again, although he works for, I think, Alfred Knopf, but it's his personal take. So words into type, not revised for decades, but still many people will swear by words into type. Then there are another category of style guide. This comes to more to writing style rather than arbitrary decisions, but some of you may be engaged in this, so it's useful that you should know this. So there are two of them, conscious style guide. So it is strong in non-discriminatory, non-sexist, and so on. That's conscious style guide. It's available on the web. And there's the diversity style guide. So this again gives you a good representation of different groups, whether you are in doubts whether it should be African American, hyphenated, capitalized, whatever. Now, what do you do when your style guide does not answer your query? So what happens? You look up and your style guide ignores it. So, well, you could send a question to Chicago Manual of Style. In fact, again, this is something I would urge you to do this. Chicago Manual of Style, the first week of each month, they publish a new set of questions. So questions that are sent to Chicago Manual and Chicago's answers. APA also has similar function. You can send in your queries. It's not answered before, they will feature that. MLA has, again, a help desk-like thing, Modern Language Association. Or you can always post a query to Copy Editing L. So this gives you, again, access to nearly 2,000 members. And in fact, now I'm glad to see ICF is not doing too badly either. So you can even post a question to ICF. Somebody may have just the answer that you need. This is a URL for submitting a question to Chicago. So you can go to this website, pose your question. Same thing with APA. You can post your query and so on. So that's in brief about style guides. I would rather like this to be a question and answer session where we pool resources. So here are just my key takeaways. Best is you choose a default style guide. Now, so long as your customer doesn't specify a style guide, so you would say that by default, I will do this. So, and you should choose two resources, one a style guide and one a dictionary. So again, I use by default Oxford Style Guide, that is Oxford Dictionary for Writers and Editors, and Hart's Rules, and Oxford Dictionary of English. So that's my default. Unless the customer wants else, this is what the customer would get. And then when you have time, you should keep browsing through style guides. And the idea is that don't pick up one style guide and try to read it through. Now that's being masochistic. What ideally you could do is, if you have access to a number of style guides, you pick a particular topic, let's say a serial comma. Now whether what style guides prefer serial comma, what they have for it, against it, or title case and sentence case. So although title case asks you to capitalize important words, but then what are important words and so on. So choose a topic and see how different style guides and their take on it. So that way you will get to know a number of style guides. And again, realize I mentioned examples that, the style guides will differ among themselves because these are essentially arbitrary choices. I mean, to give you an example, for instance, the UK style is not to put a dot after contractions. So the UK style differentiates between abbreviations and contractions, contractions being a subset of abbreviations. So doctor, D-O-C-T-O-R, abbreviated to D-R, the first letter is D, which is the same in case of the full spelled out version. It starts with D. The last letter is R, again that corresponds to the full spelled out version. So that makes it in UK style a contraction. And contractions are not normally followed by a dot. But this is again, it's a particular style. Not everybody would agree. I recall this because when I was working in Terry, and Terry, at least that time, used to follow essentially UK style. So we would follow contraction. We won't give a dot after DR or MR. And there was a major project, and it was being funded by Asian Development Bank. And when the report was finally sent to Asian Development Bank, we got this email saying, oh, it's all wrong. Why are these dots missing? Then the researchers came to publications unit. So we had to explain to them that, look, this is our style. And we quoted chapter and verse, and then there was no further argument. So yes, style guides will not necessarily all opt for the same style. And again, this is a useful thing that at least once a week, I would say you check archives of Copy Editing L. So, it will tell you stylistic decisions, announcements of changes in style guides, new editions, and so on. So that will be very useful. So in closing, I would like to quote Andrew, who's editor for the Economist Style Guide. It's a longish quote. Yeah, I really loved it. Said what seems barbarous to us older folks seems normal and correct to them.
Absolutely.
So keep an open mind.
Yes, yes.
Thank you very much. If you have questions, comments, contributions, I'll be delighted.
Yeah, thanks, Yatyendra. So I will take the first question. It says, please share more about what's copy editing L.
Oh, okay. In fact, I had written a short article on ICF forum itself. So it's a listserv. So it's just like, you have WhatsApp groups. This is a internet discussion group, Copy Editing L, mostly Americans, but you have a sprinkling of other nationalities. So this is a group of copy editors, and you become a member. So you subscribe to it. It's just an email based thing. And then you can send in questions. You can see what questions others have asked, what answers have been given, and so on. The only advice I would give you is you become a member, subscribe, and then immediately change the option to no mail, because otherwise you'll be flooded with messages. It's a very active list. So that is what I suggest, that you become a member, change your subscription preference to no mail, and then you can access the archive because 24 hours, but you may not be as obsessive, whatever. So that is what I mean by copy editing. You can just Google for copy editing -L. You'll get more information. Any other?
Vikas Sharda, there is a comment from him. He says, when someone says he or she is familiar with APA or Chicago, what does it mean? Because I have worked on in-house style guides that are loosely based on these guides, but do not follow them completely.
Well, in fact, many publishing organizations, what they do is they will again use one style as a default, and they will have their own set of rules to supplement what is not covered in the default style guide or what is unique to their organization or unique to their trade and so on. So when the organization says, okay, our default will be APA, which means in most cases, they will go by whatever is the ruling given in APA. When it's not covered, if the organization has something that will override APA, then that will be noted in style sheet.
Yatindra, do you have a preference for online editions of these style manuals, or do you prefer print copies? Like, what's your personal take on this?
My personal take is I prefer which are I use practically, every 10 minutes or every half an hour. I would prefer a printed style guide. But that's why I have a hard copy of Hart's and Oxford Dictionary for Writers and Editors and Chicago. But otherwise, yeah, I think online would be much easier to access. In fact, if you can do this just to take you quickly through this, these are simply, I mean, there's no explanation needed, simply to give you a look at what are these. Even, so this government style manual, words into type. You can ask me questions. I'm simply showing you pictures of style guides, that's all. Yeah, this is particularly what I would recommend Einson's book.
What kind of a relationship does a fiction editor have with style guides? Would it be better to make a personal one for yourself?
Yes, in fact, that is what I think Murugaran covered in his talk, that if you're editing fiction, then you need to keep track of how names are spelled, and as somebody described, the characters' physical attributes and so on, because you need to be consistent. So there, I don't think any published style guide will help you keep track of those. So if you are primarily editing fiction, then you will need to develop your own style sheet. Unless fact checking is also a part of that. In that case, style guides may come in handy. For instance, how do you spell names of countries, rivers, whatever. So there you will still need a style guide, but not otherwise.
Deepali is asking, do we need to read a style guide end to end or only use it as a reference guide?
As a reference guide, unless you are, as I said, you are really obsessive about it, you can read a style guide, but I don't think many people will be willing to do that because they can be incredibly boring unless you are obsessive about it. In fact, it's my personal theory that if you have OCD, the best profession you can adopt is copy editing.
Yeah, she said, I tried reading CMS hard copy, but my work deadlines didn't allow me to
No,
finish.
and I would say it's not really a pleasant undertaking. Try to get used to, as I said, that's the key thing, that you need to know when to look it up. And that will come through experience. There's no point in, because Chicago manual, if you say, again, whether it's 17th edition or 16th edition, it's a fat tome. Why would anyone want to do it? These are reference books. So style guides are essentially reference books. So even CIA has its own style guide. This is CIA's style guide. Yeah. Yes, Vivek, you are saying something.
Yes. Sonali is asking, what style guide would you recommend to a freelance editor just starting out?
But I will need to know the domain, because freelance editor, yes, but are you going to be editing mainly research papers? Are you editing university thesis. So what is it that only then, I would try to suggest something. It's too wide a question. And that was the whole point, that you have such a wide choice. So you need to see what style guide is more appropriate to your domain or discipline or subject.
Sonali, can you unmute yourself and elaborate
Yeah, sure.
on your
I
question?
was going to type out. So I'm just starting, so I don't have a very specific domain yet, but I guess it's mostly humanities and like articles, or to some extent essays and thesis perhaps. And yeah,
Yeah,
most
so if you are talking about academic matter,
yeah.
so academic matter and humanities, this combination leads me to straight away recommend to you MLA, Modern
Right.
Language Association.
Right.
That is probably the most appropriate style guide for what you have in mind.
And if it's it's a lot of times it's like the research papers that are adapted for the general public, an article that's coming out, or maybe a book. So something in that case, would it also still be MLA, do you think?
Then again, it will depend on the subject matter of the article.
Right.
Let's say if the subject matter has many technical terms related to web design, for
Right.
instance, then IBM or Yahoo or Microsoft might be more useful. Or if it's something to do with more medicine oriented, then you might turn to MLA. So it depends. You will need to switch depending on the subject matter of whatever that you are editing.
Okay. Thank you.
Not at all.
Yeah, Dr. Ruchika, she is asking, when there are so many style guides and style manuals available, is there a need for developing a style sheet for a non-fiction book or manuscript?
So who's writing the book?
The author.
Yeah, but I'm
The
sure.
author writes the book.
Yeah. Yes, of course. But obviously the author would like the book to be published, right? Or only for expression, self-expression.
Ruchika, can you please elaborate?
Yes, sir. First of all, Yatin sir, it was such a nice presentation.
Oh,
You
thank
can
you.
hear me, right? Yeah, it was very well laid, I must say. So, what my question is that, say, a book comes to me, and I understand that it is a basically I'm doing in chemistry, fine.
Okay.
So, say a textbook comes for ninth or 10th level maybe.
Okay.
Now I know that it is going to cover all these things about chemistry. So I can suggest that let's just choose this style guide.
ACS. Okay. ACS
right.
probably will be the most appropriate.
ACS would be more probably, but in India we do like British style, so maybe something British style. I can just
but then see, no, that's no. I'm sorry, I'm interrupting you. What you could do is you could use both, because after all there will be questions of style which are not really chemistry oriented. In that case, you could go by UK, so Hart's Rules and Oxford Dictionary for Writers and Editors. But specific chemical terminology, names of compounds and so on, that you could back up by ACS, or there is Oxford Dictionary for Scientific Writers and Editors.
Right, that's what I want to say. That can't I just say that, because it will lessen my headache, no?
Yeah, in fact, if I were you, first I will ask the author whether this is intended for publication, and is there whether the author has any publisher in mind. That will be in fact much easier, because if the author is preparing it for a publisher or intends to submit it to a given publisher, then you can look up what is the style guide used by that publisher, A, and you can also look up some of the publication already coming out from that publishing house and follow that style.
Right. That can happen, of course. But if the publisher is also new, and maybe there are a lot of permutation combinations.
Okay, in that case, what you could do is you could use your judgment and then say it upfront that in absence of this, I'm going to use this style guide. So if you have any objections, you can.
Yeah, that becomes easy. That's why I was
Yeah.
asking.
Also, I'm sure you edit quite a few research papers.
Yes, I do.
Yeah. So in that
Yes.
case, again, the
They
particular
tell.
journal, the journal in question should be your first port of call.
Right, but that's most of the time that is indicated that this is for this journal. Just go
Yeah.
to that journal site and get out whatever
Yes. Yeah.
they
Exactly.
want. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Thank
Not
you.
at all.
This helps a lot. Thank you.
Anthony is asking, I mostly write medical matters. I find it difficult to express diseases like cancer in a humane way. I do not want to use terms like cancer survivor because it's not really a battle. Is there any style guide that can help me write disease
Yes.
related matters in a more humane way?
Yes and no. That is, as I have been saying, that style guides will not really help you to develop a particular kind of style. But as I'm sure Vivek, probably you are better placed to answer this. I think AMA has a specific section on how to refer to patients and their diseases and so on. So that plus either inclusive style guide,
Yeah.
yeah, that will help you. So in a more humane way, because doctors tend to regard patients as sort of objects, and style guides are sensitive to that. So they do suggest that if you are writing about patients, use this approach. So AMA, you will find some guidance on that, I'm sure.
Okay, I would like to share a comment from Deepali. She's saying, you presented a few examples of different styles. So Yatin, does this mean you have fine read each guide? So the journey from Deepali Joshi to Yatindra Joshi is going to be long and laborious.
Well, I would like to say yes, but that won't be true. I don't think I've really read all these style guides, but I've referred to many of them. Personally, I would say if I really want to do some light reading, then I would say economist style guide is something that you might even enjoy reading. It's written in a light tone and short entries. But otherwise, to answer your question, no, I have not read any one particular style guide from start to finish. Probably Hearts, yes, because I started using Hearts when it was a much slimmer volume of maybe about 100 odd pages. I'm talking about 30 years ago. But even the latest edition, I don't think I've read it through and through. Because there's a reason for this. There's some stuff that it never comes to me for editing. Humanities is such a large block. I hardly ever edit anything in humanities. So the sections of Hart's rules that deal with those matters, I have they're of no use to me. So I haven't. Whereas I would say the units tables especially, because that's one of my, I would say, it's an area of interest, how to present tables. So I have scrutinized the advice on presenting tables in virtually all style guides. I've done that. References is yet again where I have a comparative table of how references are covered by different style guides. What's the punctuation used, what is the sequence of elements in a reference, and so on. So that is again something. So that's what I meant when I said you should compare style guides against a particular topic. So choose a particular topic and then see how that is dealt by different style guides.
Thanks, Yatindra. Murugaraj did reply to that comment. He said, I am sure you will enjoy the journey and ultimately the transformation.
Right, yes. Yes, quite. Yeah.
Okay, Kura Bhati is asking, for fiction editing, does one really need to refer to all these style guides like MLA, etc.?
Fiction editing, no, I don't think MLA would be of particular use. Fiction editing, as I said, there'll be two things. One is how you maintain consistency. For that, you will need a style sheet. There's no particular style guide that would help you. But then again, it depends what kind of fiction. So let's say that a fictional character speaks, let's say, British English. But then you will need to know that these expressions that the person is using are in fact British expressions or US expressions and so on. So that is something you will need to keep an eye for. And factual details, names of places, treats, reference. In fact, I recall I remember reading John Le Carre has shared this. So Le Carre, if anyone has read Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, you'll remember that there's a passage in which the character makes a journey from Hong Kong to Hong Kong airport. Now, when he wrote this, he didn't realize that there is actually an undersea tunnel. And when it was pointed out, by the time I think US edition had already gone to print, but he corrected it in the next edition. So that's a total work of fiction. But yes, if you're mentioning specific facts, then you need to work on that. And in fact, yesterday I was listening to an interview of Mick Herron. Again, I've found Mick Herron recently, but I loved his fiction books. He's published the Jackson Lamb series of spy stories based in Britain. So what Mick Herron said, he says, I'm lazy. I don't want to carry out any research. So I will scrupulously avoid all these complications. But he is able to get away with that.
There is a question that often keeps coming up. A lot of ICF members, they ask, which edition of a manual should I refer to? So it might be they have maybe the 6th edition of APA, but the 7th edition is out. Now, what do they do? Should they keep using the 6th edition, or should they try getting the 7th edition?
Well, I would say this. First off, check with the customer, because not everyone will switch on to, just as you don't switch on to every new version of Windows by default. You will go bankrupt probably, or mad. But so you check with the customer. Then again, most style guides, when they publish a new edition, either on the web page, or there will be several such references where they will highlight the main changes in. So you can supplement, let's say you take APA. So now APA 7 is the latest. But if you are using APA 6, after all, there's not too many differences. And you can carry out a little bit of surfing to know which are the main differences. So then it's up to you, whether you want to stick to APA 6 or retain your copy of APA 6, but also cross-check. For instance, now APA 7, when you are giving references, the place of publication is now no longer a requirement. It has done away with that. So such things are typically highlighted in any press releases or web pages that deal with the new edition of a style guide. Now I'm showing this reference, ACS. Now it's really funny, because this is the first time ever I've seen, though it's quite logical. If you look at this, you see the names of authors. So there's a comma after the surname, and then there is a semicolon between one author and the next. It is totally logical, but I have not seen any other publisher using this semicolons. Whether it's Elsevier, whether it's Springer, they all, if they are using commas, they will use a comma after the last name and a comma after initials. And then you see here, that's the ACS style. That's what they have adopted, semicolon, but it really looks weird.
So I think we have covered all the questions. If there are any more questions, please unmute and ask.
Yeah, sure.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Yes, Ruchika.
So as a when you are applying to a post of editor, or maybe you are just replying to some kind of job posting, and they ask you whether you are aware of or these style guides. So what does that mean? Because come on, I cannot remember all of them. So what does that mean? I mean, how much true should I be?
Well, it depends. First of all, the question is whether you are going to be facing a personal interview or not. If it's only long distance, then I would say you could be a little more, you could be less truthful. Because you can always look up the style guide in question when a job is given to you. Yeah. And I would say that because typically there will be a test of your editing, and that test will involve how scrupulously you are able to apply the recommendations of a given style guide. So you could say that these are the ones I use by default, so I'm fairly familiar. But see, the question is, once you know the kind of issues that style guides cover, then it doesn't really, there's no particular challenge to switch to a new style guide, because you know what to look for, you know what are the areas in which style guides will differ. So in that case, it's not really a big deal to switch to another style guide.
Yeah, of course. This
So
may
that
not
is
be a
what you need to
challenge
emphasize.
for ups. Yes.
That you need
At
to
least,
emphasize that I am familiar with these, but I'm a learner and I know a variety of style guides, and I can use anyone that you may
yeah.
specify.
I know how to apply, but of course I don't remember all of them. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Because after all, they are interested in your ability to apply the style guide.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
I have a
Thank you.
question. How does one, if you're using, say, MLA, and then you have to switch to a Chicago. So how can you remember where and what? Because there's so many differences to apply these.
But do you edit books or do you edit
So I do
articles?
fiction, but I'm very curious to know how does the non-fiction or a STEM editor kind of keep track of all this?
I'm sure you have met people who are mad about football or cricket or whatever.
Right.
And you will be surprised, how many details they remember. Oh, I remember this test, Gary Sobers hit a century and whatever. And you will be surprised, how do they remember so many details? Exactly the same thing. If you're passionate about your work, if you are really obsessive, you remember these details. Because that's your bread and butter. For a copy editor, the most important tool is a style guide.
But how would you know when to switch? Say if you want to know how you refer to, say, books, when you're referring to the author's books.
Okay.
Or you're talking about, what should I say, whether to hyphenate or not hyphenate. So how would you know which style guide to refer? How often would you refer to a style guide? That's my question.
In fact, that is why I said that you should have two default tools. That is, one is a default dictionary and one is a default style guide. So I would say the kind of thing that you mentioned, whether it's hyphenated or capitalization, I would say first you should turn to your default dictionary and simply go by whatever that dictionary tells you.
No, for the fiction, I'm all right. I'm talking about non-fiction. For fiction, I have my New Hearts rules or my copy editors. I'm talking about non-fiction because I was trying to see whether I would be able to, do academic.
Okay, so non-fiction, in fact, then again, it depends what is the subject domain. That's why I said that there are style guides differ to different domains. So you have chemistry, you have physics, you have biology, and so on. So that could be one way of narrowing down your choice. That if the non-fiction material that you're editing, it's mostly biology, mostly physics, mostly maths. So that will point you to one style guide. That is one. Second is, again, the matter that you are editing, whether it is intended for a particular publisher, then that's again another way of narrowing it down. Because if it's intended for a particular publisher, you can always check what is the style guide preferred by that publisher. So that will help you narrow down the choice.
Yeah, I've done social sciences, I've done management, but I haven't done, because I have studied economics and politics. So.
Yeah, so social sciences, in fact, APA is the most widely used style guide in the social sciences. So you could, in fact, practically take it as a default and then supplement it with more specific, like Wall Street Journal, for instance, has a good guide. Economist has a economist style guide. So you could supplement this, but social sciences, by and large, it is either APA or Chicago. So you can check with your customer what's their choice.
Economic style guide.
Yeah, but it's not as extensive. So you will still need, because the economic style guide doesn't deal with academic matters that you typically see, that is references, tables, citations, and so on. That is not covered in the economic style guide. So you will still need APA or Chicago for these details.
So for social sciences, you won't use the MLA style citation.
No.
Use more of the APA.
Yeah, yes. MLA is almost exclusively for humanities. Humanities US style. Humanities UK, you could get MHRA, Modern Humanities Research Association style guide.
Thanks, Yatindra. So any more questions before we close?
And as I said, that's why
I
I'm
have a
giving my
question, sir.
Gmail. Yeah, sure. Yeah.
So you mentioned about non-sexist words style guide, the diversity style guide.
Yes.
Do we have any online resource for that?
Yeah, these are online resources. You don't have to buy them. Conscious Style Guide, it's a website. You can look up Conscious Style Guide.
All right. And about the archives of copy editing -L. So you talked about the questions that are archived on their website. So can we rely on the information that has been archived? Maybe they cross-check the information before archiving it, and or just kind of conversation is saved there.
No, it is not edited. Entire thing is archived. But typically when people answer questions, they always offer justification. So they supplement their choice by saying that this is as per this guide, or this is why I prefer it that way, and so on. So ultimately it will be your call. But copy editing L archives, and they are searchable. So they are typically backed by adequate justification. So you could then make your call.
Okay.
And anyway, I'm giving my Gmail. So if you have any queries, you can write to me. If you need, I can send you this presentation in PDF if you are interested. So just email me. I'll be happy to do that.
Okay. It would be wonderful.
Thank you then.
Yeah, Jatin, there's one more question.
Yeah, sure.
From Anjana. She's asking for a children's book, for the glossary, will you recommend the Chicago Manual?
I think that will be a bit of an overkill for Chicago, because it's because
I so agree, sir. That's what I thought, but the publisher called me and said, "Follow the Chicago Manual," and I was like, "Oh my God, what's happening?" I so agree.
For children's glossary, you need Chicago. No.
Exactly. Why would you need Chicago for a children's book? I mean, I could just do the glossary using common sense, normal common sense of having been publishing for so many years.
Yeah.
Thank
but
you.
having said
Thank
that, there is just one more point, that after all, when you are writing a glossary, you are still generating text.
Yes.
So there could be words like whether certain word is to be italicized, whether certain word to be hyphenated. Now, for instance, you take the prefix non. Now, typical US style is to not separate non with the following noun with hyphen.
Right.
Yeah. Whereas most European and British publishers will put a hyphen there. So such thing will still look up. You will still need a style guide. Yes.
Yeah. But you're right. I find the Oxford Dictionary easier. I mean,
yeah.
in these
even
cases,
I find that's so much easier, and it's less dogmatic.
Yeah, less dogmatic. Yeah. Absolutely. Thank you, sir. Thank you. And the session was lovely. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yatin, have you maintained a collection of all the articles that you have written for various organizations, various websites?
Yes. Yeah, I have a record of all this. Yes. In fact, the most recent appeared only day before yesterday in Current Science. I have put this because I've been conducting training programs for academics for 15 plus years. So I have put a small article. It's titled "Helping Scientists Write, Publish and Present." It has appeared in Current Science just two days ago. But yes, I have a list of articles, and most of them are in public access. So.
Because I think your articles will answer a lot of questions that people have.
All right. Okay.
And there is a comment by Kanaka, like a wonderful and enlightening session. Sir, I do have a kind of obsession and spend free time reading about details that you had mentioned.
Great.
I feel normal now. Thank you.
Splendid. In fact, there's a novel, The Grammarians. Have you heard of this? So it's a novel, and in which the main protagonists are editors. It's quite amusing.
I even heard there was a movie about copy editors. I have forgotten the name, but it came a few years back. So I was Happy to read that.
Acha. Oh, that's interesting.
So thanks everyone, and thanks Yatin for a great session. And
Oh,
before we
thanks
end, I
so
would like to tell you about our next session that's coming up next Sunday. It's going to be a mega session where we are going to have 6 speakers present on different aspects of Indian English. Now, Indian English is a subject that's of interest not only to Indians but also to editors in the US, UK, and other countries. And one of the presenters is going to be Murugaraj, and we have 5 more. All of them are ICF members, so we will be sending out a registration form for you to register for the webinar, because we want to make sure everyone who is interested gets a chance to attend that. So that's going to be a great session. Please don't miss it. And next Saturday, if you want a break from editing, you can attend the travel series that we are starting. Saturdays 4 p.m. because for the next 2 Saturdays we don't have an interview. So the interview series will not be there. So for those 2 weeks, we will be covering up with the travel series. And good to see Jayanthan also. I think Yatindra, if you can.
Yeah, hi.
Maybe.
I was hoping that Jayanthan would be joining in.
Yeah, I could not have missed your presentation anyway.
No. In fact, that point about mid was specifically directed to you.
I know, I understood that. I understood that. Yeah.
Okay.
But which style says mid, then space,
Oxford.
and then
Oxford says space. Chicago says hyphen.
Okay. But mid is not a complete word. So
It's a style guide. Style guide. I am not arguing. I simply follow that. I used it.
Okay.
So in fact, Jayanthan will be presenting a session on indexing.
Oh, great.
Next
Yeah,
month.
with the veteran indexer. Yes.
So those who are interested in indexing, or if you want to add it as an additional service, you can attend that. And even as editors, indexes come to us for editing, so that's something we should know how to edit an index.
Right. Okay.
So I will end with the comment from Deepali. Yatin sir, thank you for this session. Sunday morning madness set aside for Yatin's session. My family knows you now.
Oh. I'm happy to be a virtual member.
Yeah, and because Sharda is saying you are a knowledge powerhouse, glad to be a part of your session. And Jessica Richard wants to learn indexing, so she's welcome, and others are also welcome. So thanks once again to Yatindra and to all the members.
Thank you for organizing it. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to share. It's a great community, and
yeah, we will keep on growing, and
sure,
it's one of the positives that have come out from the lockdown and the COVID.
Okay.
So we now have a nice.
is a blessing for ICF.
Oh,
we now have a nice. We now have a nice collection of webinar content available on the ICF YouTube channel, and I will share the link with Yatindra because he is not on Facebook. So,
please do. Yeah. Thanks.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you, everyone, and have a nice day. See you next Saturday and then on Sunday.
Bye-bye. Happy copy editing to everybody.